A very pleasant good afternoon. Always a joy to be with one another. GCE after GCE, someone once typified the GCE experience as a Feast of Tabernacles for ministers. And in many ways, that's really true. I should confess that during the noon luncheon, I took a crash course from Mark Welch in PowerPoint improvement. And so this presentation will be considerably better than it would have been otherwise. Here you see a picture of, or photograph of the Canadian office in Mississauga. We have a corner unit. Some of you have been there. There's an upstairs that we do not occupy. The main entrance is on the right. You'll see some white signage in the far right-hand section of that slide, and that, of course, says UCG Canada. And we've been there 8 years. We have 2 years left in our lease in this location. Putting some things into perspective for our neighbor to the north here, where we find ourselves in these United States, Canada is the second largest country in the world in terms of land mass. U.S. Is third, and Canada has about 1/10 of the population of the United States. We also have 10 provinces, 3 territories. They'll show up better in the next slide. And in Canada, about 63% consider themselves Christian. That is, of course, on the decline, but only about 22% attend church regularly, which also is on the decline, as in most Western world nations. Now, some fun facts to dispel some myths about Canada, or perhaps to confirm them. In Canada, as in some other locations, you can purchase milk in plastic bags. It's interesting to see visitors try to figure out how to get milk out of a plastic bag or how to get it in a plastic bag to begin with. But it's one of the features we have that is good for the environment, we're told. This is something else that you may familiarize yourself with when you visit Canada. That's one of our special dishes called poutine, having originated in Quebec. It's French fries, of course, covered with brown gravy and cheese curds. Very delicious. Good place to get it is in Costco, I found. Our next dish of distinction is what is called a beaver tail. It's a type of Canadian donut, unique to the country, and beavers are never injured in the process of creating those. And of course, the famous beverage for our neck of the woods is Tim Hortons coffee. That's a hot coffee and a ice cap, I believe. And it's owned, I think, now by Wendy's, in fact, which in turn is owned by a Brazilian company. So not as Canadian as it used to be. And another thing we should look at, besides Tim Hortons coffee, is not all Canadians say A, but a lot of them do. Moving on, here is a better map of what the country looks like, and many of you have been there for Feast of Tabernacles. We appreciate that very, very much, in fact, and always look forward to your return. Here is a list of our pastors, many of whom are here for this particular conference. John Elliott, who pastors congregations both in the U.S. and Canada. His neighbor closest to him, pastoring in Abbotsford, David Palmer. Mike Erickson, who pastors congregations in BC and in Edmonton, recently having moved, in fact, to Edmonton. Rena Saloma, who's here, Larry DeLong, Herb Tygent, also pastoring congregations both sides of the border. Pat Reed, who has family in this area. Paul Wasselkoff, Jim Lucas, both of whom are here also. Yours truly. And Michael Caputo, who pastors the Montreal congregation, born in Italy, moved to Montreal, and now lives in Toronto, retired school teacher who speaks English, Italian, and French. So he's ideally suited for Montreal. Some vital statistics about the land north of us. We have 448 baptized members. Now, because of privacy legislation, we are required to obtain express permission from brethren to call themselves members. We enter them on the books after they have filled in a form, and we are required to have their permission to submit their stats to the Home Office because it means we are passing on information beyond our borders. Last night we touched on donors and coworkers. Here are the numbers of donors and coworkers that we have in Canada. 543 donors, 148 coworkers. Together they provide 25% of our income. So 3/4 from our membership, 1/4 from donors. Donors are about 10%, coworkers about 15%, so 25% of our income comes from coworkers and donors, a significant amount, and we don't take that for granted. Stormy weather has caused lower than normal attendance this past winter, and here is a chart or a grid on how our attendance has turned out. There are snowflakes there to confirm what we've experienced recently. There are spans of time there. 97 to 2001, attendance on average was 435. That next span, 524. Our next span of time, 535. Then it went down to 525, and we're bouncing back up to 533. And I think that'll hit 535, 540 this summer. Just as a step back in time, in the days of worldwide, the average attendance in Canada, not potential attendance, average attendance was 12,000 people. And so none of the churches of God have come back anywhere near to those numbers. But weather does affect our attendance there, even as it does in northern areas of the USA. We're looking at national office staff. Now we're stuck, there's a whole lot more people than that. All right, there we go. That's much better. Peter, did you do this? National office staff, starting again. We have 2 full-time employees. Everyone else is part-time. Our 2 full-time men are Edwin Van Pelt on your far left, who is our office manager. Also our treasurer, far right, Dale Van Zandt, who is our accounts manager. Then we have the rest who are part-time employees. 4 of those 8 are church pastors. Here's Jim and Paul, Pat Reed, and myself. Bill Domovsky, far left corner, is our resident accountant. Linda Wasselkoff, executive secretary. And Paula Horlick is usually answering the phone when you call. When you hear the phone ring, she'll usually answer. And then we have Donna Cheka, who is in mailing. And Jim and Pat Reed also working in video production. Here is a composite picture of, or joint picture of our board. We have a composition of board membership as follows. We have a total of 9 members, and the constitution or consistency of composition would be the better word. We have 2 lay members. 2 seats are always preserved for them, namely this time occupied by Stan Kitt and Kevin Ford. Stan Kitt, a retired engineer, and Kevin Ford, a retired accountant. And then we have, of course, the rest of the board members, 3 lay ministers or salaried ministers, Larry DeLong and Lloyd Teetart and Peter Corrigan, whereas Lloyd, who is here with us, has attended 18 out of the last 19 General Conference of Elder sessions. You will notice by way of body language that virtually all of the personages are smiling, but one in particular is beaming. And the individual who's beaming is our chairman, who has served 20 continuous years as council chairman. This photo was taken shortly after he said he would not stand for another term. So. Moving on with our slides, we have 2 new hires coming on. One about a month ago, that's Sheldon Sitter. And a week ago, in fact, is Wayne Ward. We're very happy to have them on stream in the Edmonton area. Beyond Today programming, here is where we're at with respect to Beyond Today. We've been on now for 13 years. 60,000 responses have been received during that time, and there's a breakdown of how those responses come to us. Prophecy programs generate the greatest response, followed by doctrine, followed by Christian living. Then you have results. These were referred to last night by John Elliott. The numbers indeed have spiked since the new video studio has been created and new programming format has been followed through. You'll notice the right-hand column, we have the 1/3 to 1/4 respondents every time are brand new, which is a highly significant stat. We send out subscriber development letters every 4 months. This is a list of those who are recipients, percentage of responses, also the donations received, and also included is a letter here, which often we don't receive that many. We certainly get many for the program, that is the television program, also the magazine, but this is from a subscriber development letter response where someone is saying your material is excellent and keep yourself rapturable in that last line. Our literature is second to none, highly appreciated, and we shouldn't take it for granted either. Now it comes to our literature. That is a sample of United News Canada. We have 91,600 people in our database, almost 17,500 Beyond a Day magazine subscribers. We have just over 1,400 Pour l'Avenir subscribers, most of whom are in Quebec. And then we have other subscribers such as those who are enrolled in the Bible study course and also receiving United News Canada every four times a year, every 3 months, 472 on that list, and 444 who receive United News here from the home office. Now, featuring one of our congregations, Ottawa congregation in particular, and one couple especially wanted to feature here as we wrap up. This is Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Moulton. They've been longtime members. He is the resident elder, and this is his wife. They are Joe and Mary, Joseph and Mary, just as in the Bible. A lovely and a wonderful couple. And this is the average of the Ottawa congregation. The average attendance is 33. Recently, when the Lucases were there, Jim and Almeida, on the first day of Unleavened Bread, it spiked to 53. And in that congregation, 18 to 19 attendees are children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren of Mr. and Mrs. Moulton. And 5 are married into the family. It says 18 to 19 because one of those is due anytime, and the attendance is about to increase. He'll be 95 in July. Still lives on the family farm. They still farm part-time. They come to church every week. He does announcements most every Sabbath. They help with tear down, set up, and removal of chairs and tables week by week by week. And a further note that one of our elders, newly acknowledged last night, who is from Ohio, his granddaughter recently married this couple's grandson. The wedding was in Portsmouth a month ago, and said young lady now lives in the Ottawa congregation, and we're happy to do more of the same if that can be arranged. So, this is our farewell photo, as it were. It's the ministers' conference 2 times ago. We failed to do a photo last time, I'm sorry to say. We have 28 elders. Some of these are deceased, I'm sorry to say. Others have been added. But from all of the elders and wives in Canada, on behalf of the congregants they serve, we say to you, thank you for allowing us to be part of UCGIA, and we thank the Home Office for your abiding support.